We're in Agitao, Portugal. This is not far from our house in Setúbal. Karen and I took the bus out here, and then it's about a mile walk out to this property owned by our friends Matt and Howard. They invited us over because they have all of these olive trees that are flush with fruit, and only Howard likes olives. Matt doesn't like olives. So they wanted to get rid of some of these olives so that people would enjoy them and they wouldn't go to waste. So they asked us over here. We walked out from the bus stop and it's just absolutely gorgeous out here. We walked by a couple of vineyards and saw some farm animals, and it's been raining on and off. This is the strangest weather here. Like 5 minutes ago, it was bright sunshine out here, and now it's raining. Really strange. But it's not going to impact picking the olives. So here's what we're going to do. These olives, they're ready to be picked. They're very ripe, and these trees are heavy with a lot of fruit. And here's what you want to look for. The darker the better. I'll give you a green one to look to see the difference. Like this is an unripe olive, and this is a fully ripe olive. So I'm going to pick a bunch of these olives, and then I'm going to brine them in a saltwater solution with some herbs to create the olives that you're used to, the ones that you get at the store, the ones that come in the jars and in the cans and whatnot. You can't eat these now. They're bitter and horrible now, but after they've been brined for a few weeks, they'll be meaty and tender and delicious. Oh, the rain's really starting to pick up now. So that's the plan. We're gonna pick all of these olives and give this a try. I've never brined olives before. I'm also gonna do a little research with our friends, see if anyone has an olive press. Maybe we'll try to press some oil out of them too. But I've never brined olives before. So this is gonna be a new adventure, and we'll see if it actually ends up working or not. From what I've read online, it seems pretty simple. All right, the rain's starting to come down now, so we're gonna run for the hills for a moment and take shelter. But yeah, I'm gonna be picking olives for a while, and we're gonna fill up our bag and take them home with us to Setúbal. So we're back at our apartment in Setúbal, and I'm prepping my olives to get ready to have them cured and brined. So this is something that I've never done before. So I had to do a lot of research on the internet. I watched a lot of videos, and because of that, I'm going to try multiple different methods of brining and curing olives. So we'll see which one works best, what method works best after a few weeks, which one we like the best, see if there's any taste difference, see if there's any ease of creation difference, and then for next year, maybe we'll only do one way, or maybe we'll like them all the same, and we'll try doing different ways. But anyway, that's what we're going to attempt to do today. So what I've done is I've washed all the olives. I've got rid of all the leaves and all the stems and prepped them into these various jars. And this one's sitting in a little container here that's different. I'll explain that to you in a moment. So what are we gonna do? Well, I'm gonna try 5 different ways of curing and brining olives. The first way is going to be here in just a water bath. And I've got 2 different kinds of olives that I'm going to prepare in the water bath. One is pitted. In other words, I've taken the pits out, and the other is just has the pit still in it. Why do we do that? Well, from what I've read, once they're pitted, you get it's easier to cure them because you have more surface area. That pit is removed, so you've got all that surface area. So it's easier for them to cure and brine over time. We'll see. I would say this: if you're planning on pitting your olives, know that it is a kind of a sloppy job, all right? I would strongly suggest that if you do it in your garage or in your backyard. not in your house. I don't have a garage. I don't have a backyard. I did it in the kitchen. By the time I finished the job, after about an hour, the kitchen looked like a crime scene. So I had to wash it from top to bottom to get rid of all that olive juice. It doesn't matter how careful you are. The olive juice splatters everywhere. It got on my glasses. It was splattering. But let me show you how you do it. You get one of these. I think I got this on Amazon. I couldn't find one in the stores here. I initially used this as a cherry pitter, and it's great as a cherry pitter. You put the fruit in and pop like that, and the pit falls right out. You can also use it for olives and other small fruit. But what you do is you place the fruit in there, and then you pop out the pit like that. See how easy that is? And then you just take your pitted olive, and it goes, this one. It goes right into the pitted olive jar. So that's how easy it is. But like I said, you're doing these one at a time. You're doing hundreds of them. It takes a little while to get that job done. So what we've got here is one with pits, one without pits. And for this one, I'm going to use just plain water. Now, I filtered this water through our little pitcher here, but this is just regular plain water. I did read one place that said specifically not to use chlorinated water. I don't know why you would, but that's what they said. So anyway, fill this guy up. Now what I read is, almost overflowed. You want to make sure that they're all submerged. With jars this size, that won't be so easy. The ones on the top might not be submerged all the way, but that'll just have to be okay. Now, the next step that's very important is you want to cover these. Now you'll notice these are canning jars, and what I could do is just go like this, but that would create an airtight seal. When you're curing and brining, what you're also doing is fermenting. And that means that gas is going to be released. If you make this an airtight seal, either with this locked lid or with this lid, you're going to run into problems. I'll tell you one thing, a little bit of proof of that. Back in the day, when I used to work at farmers markets selling my gelato, there was a guy who came into the booth next to me at one point, and he was selling tomatillo salsa. And I said, "Oh, did you cook down the tomatillos? You know, those little green, they look like tomatoes, but they're tomatillos. That's salsa verde, is what makes salsa verde. Did you cook them down with the onions, or did you cook them down separately?" He goes, "No, I don't cook them. I just grind up in the food processor the tomatillos, put them in there with all the other ingredients." And I said, you're putting them in tight sealed containers, and you're just putting them in there? Do you allow it to ferment first? He says, "No, I just put it in there raw." He says, "Never a problem, never had an issue. All my customers love it." Well, sure enough, he sold these cans like this. They had lids on them like this. And sure enough, 2 or 3 weeks later, customers started coming back complaining that their jars had exploded in their kitchens, making a gigantic mess. That's what'll happen, or that's what can happen, if you try to seal that lid tightly while it's fermenting. That gas will build up, and eventually, pow! It could shatter the glass. At minimum, it'll blow the top off and send your food everywhere. It's a giant mess. You don't want to do that. You might have seen this happen in your refrigerator if you tried to put some stuff that hadn't been cooked in a Tupperware, and you noticed that the top blew off. That's what's happening there. So anyway, what we're going to do is, instead of sealing it tight, I'm going to just put this cloth on top and put a rubber band around it. That way, the gas can escape while still keeping this clean. Okay, you don't want dirt and other things to get inside there. So that's what I'm going to do with both of these. Cloth on top and that around the edge. Okay, that's done. Next one. Same idea. So I've got 2 jars here. This one, they've been pitted. This one, just regular ones, have not been pitted. But this time, instead of just putting regular water, I've created a brine, a salt water. And we will, this is trying my best to be neat about this. Okay, all right. So that's in there. Nice, nice. Good, good. And let's do it with this one as well. The other thing I wanted to say, when you're pitting your olives, the thing to be aware of is the size of this reservoir and this hole. So what I did was, while I was pitting them, I was also sorting them, because if the olive is too small, it'll just go right through that hole and it won't get pitted. So you got to be aware of that. The other thing is, when you're pitting olives, that I learned, if they're soft, if they're already starting to get soft, they'll just mush right through there. Again, it makes a mess, and you're left with nothing really as far as the skin goes. So while you're pitting your olives, what you can do is you can also be sorting them. So some of the small ones that were still in good shape, I just tossed them in this jar, the one that has not been pitted. So I didn't throw them away, but I didn't pit them. So there we go. That's the last of the water. All right. And let's do the same thing here. So you can see I've got a whole extra, like this is like a liter or like a quart. I'm going to save that brine, because what's going to happen is, after every couple of days, you need to change out this water. The fresh water I'll probably change out like every day, but the salt water, I'll probably, having trouble with this rubber band, but the salt water I'll probably change out like every other day, something like that. And so we'll go through a fair amount of salt. The ratio for this was about 3 tablespoons of rock salt, of ground rock salt, to 1 liter or 1 quart of water. And I got my rock salt. Well, I'll tell you about that in a moment. I'll save that, because we're going to talk a little bit more about salt. But salt is an extremely important ingredient here in this part of Portugal, because back in the Roman times, and even before the Romans, really, over 2,000 years ago, this place where we are now, this whole peninsula and going up into Lisbon, was for fishermen. They came because there was such bountiful schools of fish that they could get. But the other thing that they did is they had to preserve that fish. And so how are they going to do it? They're going to preserve the fish with salt. And here, the method of doing that is not mining salt. It's by taking seawater and putting it into flat, shallow beds, allowing the seawater to evaporate, and what's left behind is salt crystals. And you can see these crystals are much, much bigger than like you would have in your salt shaker. But this is the salt that I use every day. And what I do is I take these crystals, I put them in a mortar and pestle, and I grind them up so that, you can sprinkle them on your food. And this salt, this particular salt, is made here in this region. It's still made here. And this bag I got at my friend's shop, Allegre Me. If you watch my video on coffee in Setúbal, I I went there and I talked about how he makes my favorite coffee in Setúbal. But he also has a little market where he sells stuff. And one of the things he sells is local salt like this, 1 kilo. How much do you think a kilo of rock salt that was made in the flat salt marshes of Setúbal cost? €1.50, about $1.60 in American. So quite a deal, and usually it takes me a long time to go through a kilo of salt. But today, because of what we're going to be doing with this last process, you'll see I'm going to be using up quite a bit of salt. So what are we doing? This is the 5th one, the 5th batch. And what we're going to do is we are going to brine this with salt only, no water whatsoever. So that's why these are like this, because I'm going to just pour them right into here. It's not a mesh bag, but it's a cloth bag, so it's breathable, and that's what you want. You want something breathable. If you can find, I haven't seen them here in Portugal, if you can find those vegetable bags that they sometimes sell that are breathable, that have the holes in them and whatnot, you can use those as well. So, as you can see, maybe I used 1/3 of a kilo of salt. It's like 2/3 of a pound. 3/4 of a pound of salt. I know it sounds like a lot, but what you're trying to do here is you're trying to extract the liquid from the olives, from the fruit, and also the bitter compounds that are in the fruit. You notice I didn't sample any of these olives. They're too bitter to eat right now. I would spit them out immediately if I did, because they'd be horrible. So you've got to extract all of that stuff from them. And in order to do that, you need salt or you need a liquid of some kind. So what's going to happen is I'm going to put this in this colander that I've got right here. I twisted this up tight just so we can get some of that liquid out immediately. And then I'm going to leave it in this bowl, and then that liquid will drain out. Okay, and I'll check it every few days, and probably after a few days, that salt will have permeated into the fruit, and I'll probably have to add more salt. So I'll check on that. Okay, water we're going to change every day. Water we're going to change every other day, and I think we'll check it again in, say, 2 to 3 weeks and see what it's like. And maybe I'll give you an update at that point. Maybe I'll sample the olive and see what it's like. It's probably going to take longer than 2 to 3 weeks, but we're going to keep our eye on it and try it. And I'm going to keep this salt water for my next saltwater bath. So there you go. I'm calling this an experiment because I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to give it a real go and see if we can create some real nice fermented olives. The last thing I want to say is you'll notice that I didn't add any herbs or citrus or garlic or anything like that. That step comes later, okay? This is what we're just curing the olives at this point. When we get ready for storage in a few weeks, that's when we'll add the other stuff. So that's where we are. Talk to you again in the future in 2 to 3 weeks. So it's been a couple of weeks since we initially brined these olives, and during that time, every couple of days, I've been changing out the water, and now it's time for the taste test, see how they're coming along. So as a reminder, we've done this 3 different ways. I know I've got 5 containers here, but 3 different ways basically. We've got pitted and unpitted olives in just plain water, nothing else. We've got pitted and unpitted olives in a saltwater solution, in a brine. And then I've got olives that have just been soaking in salt, rock salt, nothing else, no water, no liquid, no nothing in this cloth bag. So let's taste them and see how far along they are and see who's ready to jar and who needs more time. So we'll start with the just plain water ones because these undoubtedly have the most time to go before they're fully cured. And this is the pitted one. as still, as expected. That is still quite bitter. So that's going to have to stay for a good bit of time before it's ready to be jarred. Let's go to the brined ones. So I expect these to be further along. All right, this is a pitted one that's been sitting in a saltwater solution for 2 weeks. Okay, that's quite good. Much further along than these, not quite there yet. So we're going to let that sit for a little bit longer. And I'm not even going to bother tasting the one that's not pitted, because if the pitted one is not ready yet, the non-pitted one is definitely not ready yet. That's because there's much more surface area on the pitted one for the salt to penetrate the skin and to get rid of those bitter compounds. So the pitted one, that'll need even more time. But I would say in another week or two, these might be ready to be jarred and stored. All right, finally, we have the ones that have been sitting just in rock salt. And a couple of things to notice. One is, first of all, here's all the liquid. This has just been draining out. It's been sitting in this colander, and I've been emptying this water every few days, but you can see there's quite a bit of liquid down in there. And that's just from sitting here and me occasionally adding more rock salt and squeezing it. And you can see from squeezing it, really not much comes out. It's just, you know, the natural leaching process from that salt. So the other thing to notice is this olive is very wrinkly. And that's because salt is drawing out all the liquid out of the olive. And there's nothing to replace it with. Like in the brine here and in the water here, there's water that can then go inside and replace it, and so the olives stay nice and plump. In this case, no, the salt just draws everything out, and so it shrinks quite a bit. Let's do a quick comparison. So this one has just been sitting in salt. I'll do a one that's not pitted to make a fair comparison. So look at the difference between those two. This is the one that's been sitting in rock salt. This is the one that's been brined. It's like twice the size. So you can see the difference, how much liquid has been leached from inside of this olive. It's also very wrinkly because of that, because it shrunk down. So let's give this a try. Okay. So, first of all, very salty, but also not bitter. These are ready to be canned. So I think we'll do that. What we're going to do is we'll switch out the water in these like we've been doing, and we'll continue to do that. But these are ready to be jarred and preserved. So I'll show you how we do that as well. And then we'll let them sit and they'll be ready to eat in no time. All right, so we've changed out the water in here. We've changed out the salt water in here. We're going to leave those sit for maybe, these are going to have to sit for a long time, I have the feeling. We'll see how they are in maybe a month or so. These maybe 2 more weeks, and we'll check on them. But the dried olives with the salt, we're going to try and jar these now. I rinsed them off. I tried to rinse off as much of the rock salt as I could, and I put them in just this plain water bath, but still, very, very salty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try jarring one of these just to show you how we do it. And then I'll tell you what I'm going to do with the rest. So I filled up this little jar about halfway. I'm going to add in about half a clove of chopped garlic that I just chopped now in the kitchen. I'm going to add in one nice dry bay leaf that I got at the market. And then I'm going to fill it up the rest of the way with more olives. And we're going to fill this all the way to the top. Okay, so that's full. And what we do next is we top it off with some nice olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil. This is not the time to cheap out on your olive oil. Use the extra virgin. And it's taken a minute, but we're going to fill this all the way to the top. Okay, it's getting there. All right, so there we go. You can see that's all the way filled up. Now, and again, this jar is clean. This lid is clean. Make sure you've got everything perfectly clean. Sealed it nice and tight. All right. We're going to let this sit for a couple of weeks as well. Yeah, that looks good. My hope is that by curing it in that olive oil, that it will leach out a little bit of the salt, but I'm not sure that that's actually going to happen. That's why, because these are really too salty to be eating on a regular basis. I mean, it's just, they're really, really salty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try these as an experiment. And these I'm going to just let sit in water and hope that, this is just plain water, and hope that because these are so shriveled up that some of the water goes back into the membrane of the olives, plumps them back up, and because it adds in more plain water, it'll dilute the salt taste a little bit. We'll see if that actually works or not. And I'll do it just like these guys. I'm going to change out the water every couple of days and see if we can get what we're looking for, which is a nice olive taste. If not, I mean, these are, you know, they're good, they're done, but they're really too salty to be edible. I don't know what you do with such salty olives. But this is why we experimented with this, because we wanted to see which was the best method. That's why I did all of these different jars. I want to see which one is best. And as of right now, this method is definitely the fastest method, but it's not giving us the kind of olive that we want. So, yeah, way too salty, but we're going to experiment a little more and see what we can come up with. So it's been about 5 weeks since I started curing these olives, and I've been changing the water regularly and tasting them to see how they're coming along. And I think we're at a point now where we can finally be done with this process. So let's try all these different varieties and see what we've come up with. We'll start with the ones that were brined in the salt water mixture. And that's these over here. First up, the whole olives. Those are good. It's salty, but good. And then these are the ones that were pitted. Nice and salty. Okay, so these are good. I'm going to move this one over here because these two really go together. Now we'll try the ones that were just cured in water. Okay, so still, those, they just don't have the same flavor. I mean, you really have to have that salt in there to bring out the flavor of the olives. They're not bitter anymore, the curing did its job, but it just doesn't have the same flavor that the salted ones do. Here's the ones that were pitted. Yeah, same thing. So that's not really going to work. In these two jars, what I have is the ones that were just cured in plain rock salt, no water whatsoever. If you recall, I put these in olive oil because they were way too salty. And even sitting in that olive oil for a few weeks, still way too salty. I mean, those are not good at all. This is going to have to be discarded. That's not good. These, I put in some water to see if the water would draw out some of the salt. Yes, effective in drawing out the salt. So, those are ready to be canned as well. So the next step in this is actually jarring these. So what I got was, I went down to a Mercado in our town and I bought this clay jar that's got a lining on the inside so it's not porous. And this will be perfect for just storing the olives. So we'll have our little olive thing. We can put a spoon in there and get out olives anytime we want. So I'm going to start by draining these. These are the pitted olives. And then I'll put about half of them in here. Add a bay leaf or two. Then we'll add in some garlic and dried oregano. Then the rest of the olives. And we top it with some good olive oil. Bought this olive oil when we were in Beja recently, in Alentejo. Alentejo is known for its good olive oil. So this is a nice olive oil. And so that's it. These will keep for months in here. And we've got our own little supply of olives. Now, what am I going to do with the rest of these guys? This I'm going to discard. This I'm probably going to discard as well. These need salt added. So what are you going to do? I guess we'll add more salt. But I mean, that's the reason why I did all these different methods. I wanted to see what would work best. And so, even though the salt method in theory worked most quickly, the end product was inedible. So what I guess I learned from this is just the classic salt water brine is the best way to cure these olives. And next time, that's what we're going to do. Hopefully we'll get invited back to our friend Howard and Matt's little piece of property where they've got the olive trees. And we can pick some more olives next year. So thanks to Howard and Matt for having us over and picking these olives and allowing us to experiment with this. If you like food and you like travel, then this is a good channel for you to subscribe to. You can also support me at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And keep watching. We got more great places to visit, got more great food, got more great travel. And thanks for watching. See you down the road.